a production of the Mesa Chamber of Commerce. Visit us at mesachamber.org.
Good morning. Happy hot Juneteenth to everyone. And glad to be here. We have a very light agenda this morning that will be monopolized by the Dorn Policy Group. And we look forward to their updates. One of the things, just so that we can make a quick exit when we are ready, is that we propose taking July off and resuming in August, if that works for everybody. And imagine will be some discussion in the next 2 months about whether we're in person or doing this delightful Zoom again. If it's on your calendar for July, if no one has any objections, we'll just see you again in August. All right, anything else we need to cover before we invite the group? Okay. All right, Tom, Eric, take it away. What can we do for you?
Let me share my screen here, and we will get this party started. All right, Mr. Dorn, take it away.
All right. Well, good morning, everybody, and thank you for having us. I know Eric's there every time you meet, and I always look forward to coming a few times a year and to give this legislative wrap up. I wish were able to say it was a wrap up, but it's actually, I guess it's more of an update with our best guess that we'll share on when things are actually going to end. Well, anyway, thank you again for the opportunity to always represent the Mesa Chamber and also through the East Valley Chambers of Commerce Alliance. And that to that end is what we are doing our wrap up here for you with our legislative agenda. There's our team. From there. Just to recap, and I know you all know this, most of all of this, but we're going to still kind of go through it and talk about it in the context of what we're dealing with as we sit here on June 18th, 2021. As you know, our House of Representatives is extremely close. And if you remember at our legislative event in December, we these numbers 16, 14, 31, 29, and basically this has made every single Republican is the most powerful person in the state, both the House and the Senate, because they are the tail wagging the dog. And surely enough, that has played out, as you've seen with press coverage and our regular updates. Over in the Senate, we have Senator Paul Boyer, and then over in the House, it is Representative David Cook. You know, and Boyer's from Northwest Phoenix, Glendale area, and Cook is from Globe, so he represents parts of Pinal as well as Gila County. So they're holding out on the budget, and we'll talk about the budget in a little bit. There's a little more movement with regard to possible deals that we're hearing. It seems like Boyer is close, and it's just Cook that is holding out for certain things. But this is the composition, and sure enough, elections do matter, and so we'll see how things unfold with the budget, and especially going into the 22 election after redistricting. And keep in mind that the Republicans have more of a upper hand with regard to that, because the governor gets to appoint the independent commission, the divider, while others have appointments too. But at the end of the day, we'll see how those lines are drawn. Moving on, Eric. Days of the session just keeps going. The most significant thing, and it's important to note that so many bills were introduced this year for the reason of not knowing if COVID would shut things down. So more than ever, you know, you used to only introduce bills on both sides when you were trying, it was a major issue and you're trying to fast track. It was called fast tracking. You know, you do it here in the Senate, do it in the House, and then they replace it and send it up within a day. And so many people introduced bills on both sides with the unknown that perhaps COVID would hit again, and we would have to actually shut down the place. So people wanted to get their bills moved quickly. Bills vetoed, as you know, that's a huge number. The governor came back from the Republican Governors Association, and governors do this all the time to get the legislature's attention. Unfortunately, there were some bills that some of the key Republicans were upset about because they wanted it. And there was also some bills in there that some Democrats and even both sides of the aisle, they celebrate when the minority party, whether it's Republicans or Democrats, actually get a bill through and up to the governor, and they all cheer for them. And that's one of the few signs of nice statesmanship with each other. They celebrate the minority member getting a bill to the governor. Some of those got vetoed. So anyway, they're all being sent reintroduced. They don't want the optics of having to overturn their own Republican governor. So instead of doing that, override a veto, they just reintroduced everything. Eric? The budget. With regard to our budget, look at those revenues. All of a sudden, I mean, if you all, those of you that have been around doing this for a long time, we used to have, our $6 billion budget, 7, and we couldn't believe when we passed 10. Look at it now. We're up close to $14 billion. And not all of that is, it's not just all COVID and CARES Act and, all the money from the feds that they're printing like crazy back there. There's actual revenue increases to the state of Arizona through our economy growing. And that's great news for the chamber, the East Valley Chamber Alliance, and all of us as Arizonans. We are growing our economy and we are generating revenue. And a lot of that has to do also with, we finally made the adjustment with regard to taxation on online purchasing. So from the Wayfarer decision. So that's where you see, and then you'll see the also the expenditures. We've always been pretty conservative. We try to keep sure that we carry a nice rainy day fund balance. So that's why you don't see the lines meeting there. Eric? Yeah, we wanted to just put this pie chart in just to give people a perspective on what is in our budget. A lot of people, people talk about, and I guess we could all use money, more money for education, healthcare, everything. But we want to make sure you all see this visually, that this is the pie chart. This is how it's split out, our state general fund money. This does not include all the federal money, but look at that. So just so if anybody talks about we don't give money to education, make sure you can tell them, actually we give 5.6 billion, 48% of the funding goes. And if you add school facilities board in there too, and universities, it's 54% goes to education. Eric?
Thanks, Tom. So this was the budget package that was introduced. It's not the one that's being discussed in the press right now, but it'll give you a basis for understanding of what legislators are thinking and why the holdouts are holding out the way they are. We've talked in the past about tax reform. What was being proposed was a $1.5 billion tax reform package in response to Proposition 208 that was passed to the ballot. If you recall, that included a 3.5% income tax surcharge on the highest tax bracket in Arizona, of which we have 4 personal income tax brackets. So the highest tax bracket would be paying 8%, the 4.5 on top of the 3.5. So legislators saw that, Republicans saw that, and they want to mitigate the impact of that because we are seeing high wage earners move to states like Florida, Tennessee, Texas, the Austin and Nashville areas that don't have an income tax. So our tax policy does have an impact. And it really has an impact on our members because of the flow through of LLC structured corporations or sub-S, whereby the tax burden flows through to your personal income taxes and you're responsible for that. So if your business has a good year and you make over $250,000 in profit or $500,000 if you're a husband and wife team, you now have to pay that 208 surcharge. And that's what Republicans are looking at as they try and come up with some sort of tax package to keep us competitive with not just surrounding states, but other countries as well. So they're talking about compressing the personal income tax brackets to 1 at about a 2.5% rate. We're hearing that may get extended over a period of years, but we'll see what they get done as budget discussions continue. Business property tax assessment ratio. If you have a $100,000 house and a $100,000 business property, commercial and industrial properties in Arizona pay more of a percentage of their property tax valuation than than homeowners. So you, on your home, you'd pay 10% of value, on 10% of the valuation. On your commercial or industrial property, it's 18%. They're talking about reducing that from 17 to 18%, or 18 to 17% over a 2-year period, and trying to get some parity to a degree between those two classifications of property. Also included in the proposed budget package is the angel investment tax credit, 10-year extension. Mesa has actually benefited from that. There have been quite a few startups that have taken advantage of that particular tax credit. So we look at it as an economic development tool and hope it remains in. I-10 widening. A lot of our businesses provide services to the larger manufacturers in the state, like a Boeing, like an Intel, like a Raytheon down in Tucson, and they have to traverse I-10 on down to that facility down there. So there's a problem in between Pecos Road and Casa Grande. It's only 4 lanes. So if there's a death on the I-10, or if there's a tractor trailer, it shuts down the freeway and causes problems. So we've advocated for that. So that's in there. Community colleges, they're responsible for our workforce development. They have 64 million included in the budget. Tourism funded basically at current rates, and then the Arizona Competes Fund gets $50 million. But let's set the budget aside for a second and take a look at specific bills that got introduced during the legislature. And some are still pending, but we'll talk about those too. COVID liability protection. This is the bomb that didn't go off. We were seeing in other states that lawyers were targeting businesses that may have not provided hand sanitizer or may have not required masks as part of protocols for the pandemic. In Arizona, what we tried to do was still allow lawsuits to go forward, but there's a higher bar to get them into court. So you've got to have willful misconduct or gross negligence, not have followed CDC protocols or local mask mandates, and there's a higher threshold for bringing civil liability to our businesses here in Arizona. What's the net effect of that? The lawyers have passed us by, hopefully. So unless you've done something really bad, you've got a little more protection. That was a priority for us, along with other business groups. This is one that we've been pushing for some time. It wasn't a legislative act per se, but one of the Corporation Commission. If Joan has an idea to have Joan Realtor signs going like this in front of her properties, and she wants to make a business of that, she can now do that. She can start that day, go to the Corporation Commission and say, I want to do Joan signs. And she can get that done in the same day. This has been important because in today's day and age, it shouldn't take 2 weeks to start a business. You can just go down to the Corporation Commission and get it done now. Thanks to our advocacy. In fact, they use the same terms that we did in our agenda over a period of several years. Qualified facilities. This is a big one for a lot of the manufacturers in Mesa. This is for mega projects like the Taiwan Semiconductor, or the day that this bill was signed, that Intel announced its $20 billion plan expansion. That's because of this bill. How does that help Mesa manufacturers? We're the ones that supply them with the steel and with other things, on down to catering and bundt cakes for their catered events at their facilities. That has a net ripple effect throughout the economy and a multiplier for Mesa businesses. So this is one we advocated for, along with a bunch of other business groups, but the governor signed that one, and it's now law. Prop 105 disclosure. This is one that we've had on our agenda for several years. We were finding that even savvy business people don't know what the effects of 1998's Prop 105, or the so-called Voter Protection Act, are. We've had other people that have moved to the state since then. We had people that were born after 1998 that are now voting that don't know what this does. So what we wanted to do was put what we affectionately call a warning label atop the ballot measure section and explain what that does. Michelle Ugenti-Rita took on that bill, got it across the finish line this year. So at the top of the ballot section on your ballots, each year there are propositions. You will see that warning label, and that's because of the East Valley Chambers of Commerce Alliance. Vote how you want to in those propositions. Just be aware that it's difficult to adjust these for ebbs and flows of a dynamic economy or changes in technology, etc. Proposition 208 mitigation. We talked about this in terms of the budget, but there are two other bills out there that create separate classifications for businesses that have that flow through. So we'll see where those go in the budget negotiations. It's a way of helping the cities and towns in the budget discussions, whereby if they choose not to compress the income tax brackets, this may be an alternative for businesses to get some relief. Angel investment tax credit, that's also part of the budget. We talked about that. And unemployment insurance reforms, I'm going to shuffle to the next slide because this rolls into that. We've worked on unemployment insurance over the course of this year. We've kind of been the leader on it, to be candid with you. The other business organizations have followed. You all are experiencing all kinds of trouble hiring people. That is in large part because of the overextension of our unemployment insurance system. That system at the state level, that fund has been depleted over the past few years. We're advocating for a cash injection into that system in the budget process. We've advocated for requiring unemployment insurance beneficiaries to seek employment again. That was put on hold last year in April of 2020. The governor listened to us, arguably, and put it back into place on May 25th in an executive order that reinstated that work search requirement if you're on unemployment insurance. The federal bonus goes away on July 10th. That's that extra $300 on top of the state benefits. Hopefully that'll push some lower skilled workers back into the workforce. And then the governor created a return to work incentive whereby if you are on unemployment insurance and you qualify, you get a $2,000 bonus if you go back to work full-time and $1,000 if you go back part-time. So we've been kind of tip of the spear on the unemployment insurance issue and have really led the charge on that. The budget does contain some changes to the unemployment insurance system whereby you will actually see a reduction in your taxes along with that cash influx into the system. Whether that stays in there, we're not sure. And that's okay if it doesn't. We can tackle it next year if necessary. But we're trying to get workers back to work first and then deal with the system moving forward. Tom?
You know, Eric was being very humble there when he said we were tip of the spear. It wasn't just tip of the spear. Senator Karen Fann, the president of the Senate, was calling Eric and saying, "Okay, what do we want to do now?" So Eric was very much a leader in working through the unemployment insurance issue on behalf of the East Valley Chambers of Commerce Alliance. I want to hold that up. That's what I was turning around. Just want to remind you that with our agenda, as Eric indicated, Proposition 105, the warning label, that is something that you all have been advocating and your fellow chambers within the Alliance since day one. It was our idea. And Senator Ugenti Rita picked it up and has run with it for several years. So that's an achievement of this Alliance. And so keep that in mind. That is very good stuff, as well as the Corporation Commission improvements. I mean, a lot of people are on that. We're on that team to make those things happen. But that's a drum that we've been beating as the Alliance for a very long time. This is ridiculous, the way things take so long at the CorpCom. I'm going to say a few things about some future issues, and then Eric and I'd be happy to answer any questions about the budget or our agenda or just the general politics of the place these days. With regard to water, we all know that is an issue, especially with the cutbacks that are likely to occur along the Colorado River, hitting the low mark, lowest water storage since the dam was filled back in the 30s. So that's pretty scary. And thankfully, Arizona has been a leader in groundwater preservation and recharge. So, but still, because of the pact of the Colorado River states, we are going to be first to take some cuts. So water issues, so it's just not that the river that we're going to be dealing with into the future. We're also going to be getting more into desalinization. Those discussions are really starting to pick up in earnest, working with Mexico to possibly do some desal in the Gulf of California that in turn Mexico. We could keep more water and trade off with Mexico. So that's happening. Brackish water. We have some legislators that are always talking about how to, water reuse. So that's something that we're going to be diving deeper into, so to speak,
Hey,
with
Tom,
the Alliance. Yes.
may I jump in on that issue?
Yeah, sure.
On water, and I think Miss Brady's on this call. We signed a letter this week to the feds that encourage them to take a closer look at the Bartlett Dam issue. I believe you've received a presentation on that. There's SRP has a unique issue whereby sediment is filling up the Horseshoe Reservoir, and what they're asking for is to take a look at alternatives for increasing what is it, Bartlett Lake? Yes. So they're looking at building the dam a little bit higher. We signed a letter in support of that. And Linda, if you need a copy of that, I'm happy to provide it to you, but we sent it to John Hetrick. So, but that's part of what Tom is talking about is water issues.
Yeah. And then also, as you know, storm drainage and runoff from the fires. So there's a lot of water issues they're going to be dealing with. Transportation, Eric talks about some of the major projects with regard to the widening of Interstate 10. And so the governor has, those of you that were on the call yesterday with the governor, over $300 million in projects that are being put into the budget. But we're also talking about the future of the tax. As you all know, Maricopa County has taxed itself in 1985 and then again in 2005. Well, that 20-year tax is coming up in 2025. So the legislature needs to give permission to Maricopa County to go to the ballot to extend its half-cent sales tax. But MAG, the Maricopa Association of Governments, is talking about how, with inflation and is a half-cent sales tax enough? And so we're going to, in order to meet the demands for our growing economy as well as our growing population. So there's going to be a huge debate over the next couple of years. Is it a half cent that we extend, or do we increase it up to a penny? Is Maricopa County enough, or should there be a statewide tax also? So the transportation and the money to fund it, much like we have discussed the funding of education over the last 3 or 4 years, which has not gone away. That issue has not gone away. Transportation is kind of moving to front and center, especially in Maricopa County, because of the half-cent sales tax deadline. Criminal justice reform, and this is something that continues to grow as an issue, and it's directly tied to workforce development. Not only do you see philosophical and policy changes nationally with regard to criminal justice, but the workforce development side of it is what we specifically care about with regard to the Alliance. We know that the home builders have worked very closely with the Department of Corrections to give people skills. So when they come out, people are ready to go to work with the trades. You're starting to see other types of businesses wanting to engage in that, especially with the worker shortage. So we may see more industries get into where they're training people coming out of jail with good skills, and in order to reduce recidivism also for people. Education, I already talked about that, but with regard to that's always going to be with us, and it's just not the funding levels, but it's the methods of delivery of education. Now that we've gone through COVID, people have seen that online education is an option, and many school districts are going to continue with that. And so when we have an education formula that is really tied to seat time, where you're actually sitting in a chair in a building at the school, there's the debate over how do we really fund our education system is something that's emerging as a bigger issue post-COVID on how we deliver our education. And then Eric, want to talk about this theft issue?
The Mesa issue, yes. Theft by extortion. Jan Newton, one of our Mesa Chamber members, brought forth an issue that is impacting more and more people over time because of social media. What is occurring is people will go into her business and say, I want a free bundt cake, or I'm going to put a bad review on Yelp. That is theft by extortion. However, our statutes don't quite meet what is occurring. So it needs some modernization, but we're going to push that in the alliance and try and get a bill and get it through the legislature. So not a good situation, and that can happen to anybody, unfortunately, in today's day and age. But theft by extortion, an emerging issue out of the Mesa Chamber of Commerce.
And with regard to also one other item we wanted to mention was what's going to be on the ballot. And please know that these future issues, there's many others. And if you want to talk about them or if you have any questions about them, please let's discuss that. But another issue is what is going to be on the November 22 ballot. And what usually happens, and this happens if the Democrats are in control or the Republicans are in control, they huddle and they decide, okay, what do we want to referendum, what do we want to refer to the voters that will drive, in this case, Republican voters to the polls? So what will help in that end, to that end? So those issues still are going to be discussed by the Republican majority, and those probably would pass out 31-29, 16-14. One item that did get through this session is it was interesting because some Republicans, including Michelle Udall of Mesa, worked directly with the Democrats, and about a handful of Republicans, about 5, joined with regard to putting in-state tuition for DACA students on the ballot. So it did pass. So that issue will be on the ballot because there was a constitutional change that had to occur. So in November 22, we have one referendum already, in-state tuition for DACA students. So that's there, and we'll see what else comes through referendums. And we know that a handful of initiatives have already been taken out by the Secretary of State's office to put on the ballot by people they went to the Secretary of State to get it. And there have been thoughts like if they're, because there is an industry, there's now an industry, you all know, with regard to initiatives. And so if the flat tax passes, there's been rumors that possibly people would just they would go to the ballot and try to overturn it. So that remains to be seen. But anyway, we did want to just mention that that's something that's going to be unfolding over the next year. With that, I think Eric and I are pretty much done presenting what we wanted to share as our legislative wrap up. Hopefully we will be done by June 30th at 11:59, so state government does not have to be shut down again. We'd be happy to answer any questions. And once again, thank you for the privilege of representing the East Valley Chamber Alliance and specifically the Mesa Chamber. Thank you.
Well done. Thank you so much. Never a dull moment in the state of Arizona. Does anyone have any questions for the Dorn team? Well, all right. So I've been out of town for a couple of weeks. I've lost track of where we are on the audit. Do we have an update on that?
Well, I heard, if anybody else heard the radio this morning, I mean, I heard that they were getting close. Randy Pullen was talking about they're wrapping up and they're basically checking their homework now. They're kind of in that phase. So we'll see what happens after that. I think the Republican, from a perspective, from a political side, they're starting to realize this does not poll well. So it's, get it over with. And let it be what it is and then move on. So I think it's in their best interest probably to get this done by the end of the month to also. And I think that's where they're headed.
As I was in Wisconsin, the local news was very excited about sending representatives to Maricopa County to see how the audit was going. So we're all over the place. Anything else? Okay, how about council members? Thompson and Freeman, anything that you need to add about what's going on locally?
Just busy. It's never a dull moment in Mesa when it comes to economic development. So we're growing leaps and bounds. So every day it's meeting after meeting with zoning attorneys and developers and That's a good thing. It's a good thing for Mesa because it's generating a lot of revenue that goes right back into our general fund, supports the city.
Well, and I just need to thank you because I got another great listing last week. The values for land and buildings are going crazy in Mesa. So very happy about that. Thank you. Anybody else? ASU, SRP, Lumen, anybody, Phoenix Mesa Gateway, anybody have any updates they need to share before we call it a day?
Joan, this is Mark Freeman. I'll concur what Kevin said. My district is not as busy as Kevin's. However, we've got the Union over by Riverview. That's we've got some people looking at that development, and hopefully we can build more out there at the Union area. So with that, like Kevin said, we're hopping. Thank you.
So exciting. Great. Thank you. Anybody else?
Joan, I would just say I appreciate that Eric and Tom and everybody had gotten on the fact that we need, workforce. And so when we did our little survey to find out how our members are doing, they obviously took that information to the governor's office. So that was helpful, and that, we got the information in front of him. Now, if we could just start getting some employees for our folks, because I don't know of one of our members that is not looking for somebody. It's rough.
That seems to be happening all over. So what a time. What a time. Well, and I want to thank, Susan, I'll get there. I just want to thank EVCCA for everything that, that you brought to the table. And thank you for carrying the water, Dorn. Great to hear how influential the group continues to be in shaping our state. So Susan.
Just because you mentioned ASU, I'll mention for those that haven't heard yet, Matt Salmon has left our department as he threw his hat in the governor's race. And our department is being run by, in the interim, we have Adam DeGuire and Kristen Irwin. So things are business as usual for us. So we're all still here and excited to see what will happen for Matt.
Indeed.
It's a crowded race to be entering. So we'll see.
Again, never a dull moment.
Never.
Okay.
I think it's funny when people say they're bored. I'm like, what is that?
How is that possible? Yeah, I know. Ryan, I just want to thank Phoenix Mesa again. I flew through there again over the last couple of weeks. Smooth as silk always. And thank you for that. All
How's
right.
the tower going, Ryan?
Tower's going great. We've got, if you're ever driving on the 202, you'll see the big tall spire. They're finishing up the elevator shaft. You can see that sticking out on top. It's the tower is now taller than the previous tower, and about the second week of July, they're going to put the two-story cab. They build it on the ground and then lift it up using a couple cranes, and so it'll start looking. The skyline will be definitely looking much different here pretty soon.
Hey Ryan, can you tell everybody, in case they don't follow along with PMGA, can you tell everybody about some of the new routes at Allegiant and some of the new airlines that are coming in? Yeah, so we just recently launched San Diego, Jackson, Pittsburgh starts here in a couple of weeks, a couple months. All five of our we've got 5 routes to Canada coming back in the fall, which will be huge, bringing those Canadian visitors into Arizona. We added Toronto this year, which is huge. We've been working with Glenn Williamson with the Canadian Arizona Business Council to really push that Toronto market. So that'll be huge. And we continue to add routes and add destinations, and just reminding people that the best way to show Allegiant that we want more routes is to fly it when you can. So thank you, Joan. Appreciate that.
Almost every month. So happy to do it.
Well, I saw your post for the ASU BYU game, so I'm going to go on there and get tickets before they're gone.
Yeah, no,
It
that'd
does
be great.
Flights, it's pretty convenient.
Definitely.
So great.
Probably take less time than it takes me to drive and park in Tempe, huh?
It will. That's the key. That's what we want people to realize, is that you can be at your gate and having a drink and having a lunch or a snack before you'd be able to get through security at other places.
Very good. Thank you for that. Anything else? Well, all right. Hope you will all have a cool day and an even cooler weekend.
And happy
And-
Father's Day.
Oh, yes. Happy Father's Day.
Stay connected to Mesa Chamber social media, email newsletters, Monday morning message, and mesachamber.org to always know what's happening at your Mesa Chamber.